Have you ever felt like you just don't fit in? Have you ever looked in the mirror and you just weren't okay with what you saw? Well, this was something that I struggled with for a very long time. And if you watched my story yesterday, if you watched when I went live, I pulled back the curtain and talked to you about not only my external struggles along this journey and just in life, my internal struggle of what? Feeling like nobody would pay attention to me because I was in a wheelchair. Now, to some of you, you may look at that and say, oh, poor you, you're in a wheelchair. But that became the issue, right? I was thinking in my head on the day-to-day basis, poor me, I'm in a wheelchair. And as I moved along, the truth was, in any and every situation, I was already disqualifying myself. I would go to an interview and, people would talk to me and I knew how to talk, right? And people would ask me some questions and I'm already disqualifying myself in my head when they're like, oh, okay, well, this is what we want to do here. This is the job that needs to be done. This is who we need to fulfill the job. And I'm thinking in my head, they're not going to hire me. They're looking at my wheelchair. They're not staring at my eyes. They're looking at my wheelchair. So I'm automatically disqualifying myself before they even say two words. And at that point, when I leave that room, I'm now telling myself, I didn't get the job. Forget my life. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm never going to amount to anything. And remember, I had went on this climb because now I found that only call centers would hire me, right? So I went on this climb. This climb was this mountain of excitement. Now, once I got to the peak was that new job. And as I started to go down, the downslope was when I was getting into the same system of depression as I started to realize, hey, all of these things that they were instilling in us, all of these things that they were saying about us, saying, hey, you could be the next CEO of this company. Look at this person. They're a team lead after 2 months. This could be you. Now, after 2 months and 1 day, if that wasn't me, I'm sitting here saying, well, clearly that didn't happen for me because I'm in a wheelchair. And I engraved this in my brain at such a young age. I think it was back, I mentioned it in the last episode, when I was about 8 to 10 years old, I started telling myself, hey, anytime somebody's looking at you, it's because you're in a wheelchair. Anytime somebody says something funny to you, it's because you're in a wheelchair. If you can't climb on the monkey bars at the playground, you're useless, and it's because you're in a wheelchair. I was putting this in my brain, and really, in reality, 2 things happened here. Now, the first thing was, I was convinced that I got over that part of my life. I had reached like 20, maybe 21, and I was like, yeah, being in a wheelchair is awesome, rah, rah, wheelchair warrior, right? And then something strange happened. I started to get back in that sequence again of call centers after call centers after call centers. But mind you, all of this was driven by the fact that I was consumed from the idea that because I'm in a wheelchair, I cannot amount to anything. And because of that, the only job that I can do in this world is pick up the phone and talk. Now, what does that say about where I was at in my life? Remember, I was convinced that I had fixed this. So there was kind of delusion in that. And I kind of, instead of fixing it, I just pushed it back in my subconscious. Now, maybe that's you in your life. Are you okay when you look in the mirror? How many of you on here are stressed out when you look in the mirror? Maybe you're picking everything apart about yourself. I know I've gone through times where I've looked in the mirror and I said, oh man, my mustache is too long. People aren't going to pay attention to me today. I look like a scrub. Is that what you thought as soon as you saw me on this live stream, or as soon as you listened to me on this podcast? Did you look at me and say, oh, he's got a mustache, I can't listen to him? No, but those are the crazy thoughts that we're putting in our head. We look in the mirror and we pick every piece apart of ourselves, right? When in reality, the funny thing is, most people don't even notice it. A lot of my family, when we're sitting back and we're talking, there's little random things that I think is funny. Like, for example, there was one time where, well, this has happened multiple times, but my wife and I were going places, right? And I'm not talking figuratively, I'm talking physically. And so we were going somewhere, and of course, really, she was driving that day, so she hopped in. She was about to drive, and then, so I hopped in first, and then she hopped in, and she was going to drive, and I noticed something as soon as she closed the door. I looked at her, and I laughed, and I said, "Hey, did you forget something?" And she looks at me confused, and I said, "I'm pretty sure you forgot my wheelchair." But really, there's a deeper point to all of this, because not only did she forget my wheelchair physically, she's forgetting it figuratively. So all of this time when I'm thinking to myself, everybody's looking at me and saying, "Hey, because you're in a wheelchair, you're not going to succeed. Because you're in a wheelchair, I don't think you could do this job." In reality, most people don't see the wheelchair. Maybe you look at me sometimes and that's all you see if it's new to you. But what I've noticed is the more people get to know me, the less they remember about the wheelchair. And to be honest with you, when I'm actually being real with myself and I'm sitting back and thinking about it, I usually forget that I'm in a wheelchair. To be honest with you, hypothetically right now, I'm not in a wheelchair. I'm sitting in the driver's seat of a car. So my wheelchair is actually outside of the car right now. And I've gotten into this weird place where it's like, I truly do forget I'm in a wheelchair sometimes. It's just this thing that I've naturally gotten in to get me around, right? I've had family members forget I'm in a wheelchair. We'll park in a regular spot and not have enough room for my chair. And now it's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And they're like, "Honestly, I just forget you're in a wheelchair." And that used to offend me. But as I got older and as I was starting to get over this subconscious thing that was in the back of my head, I started to realize, Devon, this is the thing. All of this time, when you're sitting here worried about being in a wheelchair, worried about what people are thinking of you, worried about the fact that, hey, you can't do anything because you're in a wheelchair, people aren't even paying attention to that. And when they are, they're looking at it and saying, "Hey, what excuse am I making? If this guy who's in a wheelchair can accomplish what he's accomplished, can do what he is doing, what is my excuse," right? I've had people in my life come up to me and say, "Hey, I just want you to know you're an inspiration to me." And I remember one of the first times that happened, pretty sure it was at a church camp. Somebody came up to me and they were like, "Devon, I just want you to know, you're such an inspiration. I've been watching you this whole week and I think that you're awesome." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm kind of thrown back and I'm like, are you sure? All of this time I was convinced that people were so worried about the chair and they were stuck thinking I was never going to do anything because I'm in a chair. And now I have people coming to me telling me, "Devon, you're an inspiration." I also had people coming to me saying, "Devon, I didn't think I could do that certain thing. And now you share this story and I realize if you can do it, what's my excuse?" So I have to ask you, what is that one thing that's holding you back? Is it when you look in the mirror? Are you not okay with what you see? And if you're not okay with what you see, are you being too much of a perfectionist? Are you looking in the mirror and picking yourself apart? Because if that's the case, we have to get into a place of saying, like, it's okay. I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but the reality is we have to stop searching for perfection. I didn't used to post on social media a lot. I'm starting to get into, I say post on social media a lot as if I've been doing that consistently for like a year, but I started posting consistently again without caring about 3 days ago. And the reason why that happened all of a sudden was because I had this realization. I was like, all of this time I've been caught up in the fact that I'm convinced that people are so worried about what I have to say that I'm making sure that everything is perfect. I'm making sure the video is the right angle. I'm making sure I have just the right amount of light. I'm making sure that the headline is the right thing. And I'm not just throwing things out there. Because the truth is, what if somebody needed to hear what I had to say? And what if that one thing that I was being so self-conscious about was the thing that could change somebody's perspective and help them to realize, hey, I'm pretty awesome after all. So anyways, I just wanted to share this with you guys. I know I've been being very open about my story. I talked about that yesterday. But I challenge you, if there's something that's holding you back, if you look in the mirror and you're not okay with yourself, if there's little things about your circumstance that you're self-conscious about, take those and find a way to reposition it. Because I've learned that being in a wheelchair has now become my superpower. Because I'm not letting anything hold me back. And because I'm not letting anything hold me back, everybody's looking at me and saying, hey, this guy can do it. I can do it. And now I'm transitioning into from doing this for myself to impacting others and helping them believe in their self and know, hey, we're no different. You could do this too. I don't care about your race. I don't care about I don't care about ethnicity. I don't care how tall you are, how small you are, what color your hair is, what color your eyes are, how your voice sounds, where you grew up. This all applies. We have to be in a place where we start to get okay with those things that have been holding us back, that have been taking up our subconscious and really putting us in a place of disbelief. Hey, do me a favor. If you haven't already and you have no idea what I was talking about when I said that I shared my story yesterday, I want you to, a video is going to pop up somewhere over here to my right or my left, and I want you to take a look at that video. Now in this video, I go into depth about what I refer to as my origin story. And really this origin story is just the beginning, the absolute beginning, down to my struggles. I open up about jobs and everything like that, my depression, everything, entrepreneurship, and I just let you in such a way that hopefully it can impact you too. So once again, the video is going to pop up somewhere over here or over here. Go ahead and click on it and go watch that now.